Good evening, everyone. We're going to call to order the meeting of council, Orangeville Town Council, for Monday, November 28th. I do need a motion to approve the agenda. Could I get a motion, please, to approve the agenda? Thank you, Councillor Andrews, seconded by Councillor Prendergast. All in favor? Thank you. Any disclosures of direct or indirect pecuniary interest? Councillor Andrews?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Under the guidelines from the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act 2-A Section 3, I have been associated to a presentation that will be coming to Council, which is under 11.1 presentation, the DCCRC, Dufferin County Cultural Resource Circle. And I've been associated to the DCCRC since 2014 as an advisor and was an appointed board member. Under the Section 5 of the Act, I've provided the clerk with written statement as for this deemed conflict.
Thank you very much, Councillor Andrews. We will move on now to the singing of our national anthem. If everyone can please rise.
Associated to the DCCRC since 2014 as an advisor and was an appointed board member. Under the Section 5 of the Act, I've provided the clerk with written statement as for this deemed conflict.
Thank you very much, Councillor Andrews. We will move on now to the singing of our national anthem. If everyone can please rise.
Associated to the DCCRC since 2014 as an advisor and was an appointed board member. Under the Section 5 of the Act, I've provided the clerk with written statement as for this deemed conflict.
Thank you very much, Councillor Andrews. We will move on now to the singing of our national anthem. If everyone can please rise.
Associated to the DCCRC since 2014 as an advisor and was an appointed board member. Under the Section 5 of the Act.
Glorious and free, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Gary, do we need to take a minute to get the technology in order? Are we okay? Okay, perfect. The technical difficulties of getting back to doing in-person meetings in a hybrid fashion. So we've got it. We'd like to now respectfully acknowledge the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people, including the Ojibwe, Potawatomi, and Odawa of the Three Fires Confederacy. This meeting is being aired on public television and/or streamed live and may be taped for later public broadcast or webcast. Your name is part of the public record and will be included in the minutes of this meeting. Any member of the public connecting via telephone is reminded to press *6 to mute and unmute. Please remain muted until the chair requests comments or questions from the public. Before we move on, I just want to take a moment to talk about why all of us are wearing purple today. So November is Women Abuse Prevention Month, and I want to thank all of my council colleagues for wearing purple scarves and ties and for standing in solidarity with our friends at Family Transition Place. They work hard every day to ensure that women and children who are fleeing domestic violence can access a safe and secure place to stay, as well as the much needed resources that extend beyond emergency shelter. Why is this such an important month to acknowledge? Because gender-based violence affects all of us. It's not a women's issue, it's a human issue. Statistics continue to show that there's an increase in the number of domestic violence cases and calls, and women and children continue to live in unsafe or precarious circumstances. Tonight, I'm bringing you some startling statistics. Every 6 days, a woman in Canada is killed by her intimate partner, and for Indigenous or transgender women, that rate is much higher. 30% of all women aged 15 or older report experiencing sexual assault at least once. 67% of people in Canada know a woman who has experienced physical or sexual abuse. And every night, over 6,000 women and children in Canada sleep in shelters because they aren't safe at their home. Our community is very fortunate to have a resource like Family Transition Place, and we need to support them. You can help by making a direct donation on their website, familytransitionplace.ca, by supporting the Wrapped in Courage campaign like all of us did with the purchase of a scarf or a tie, like you see us wearing today, or by supporting any of the upcoming events. Also, just to note, December 6th is National Day of Remembrance and Action on Violence Against Women. And that's where we remember the 14 women who were murdered at École Polytechnique in 1989. So please join us at 11:30 a.m. that day on December 6th in front of Family Transition Place on Breeden Parkway. And in the words of Family Transition Place, it does take the strength of an entire community to end violence against women. So again, I thank my council colleagues for joining in tonight. Now, on that note, there is no rise and report. We do have an adoption of minutes of the previous council meeting. Can I have a motion to approve the council meeting minutes of September 26, 2022? Councillor McIntosh, seconded by Deputy Mayor Taylor. All in favor? And that's carried unanimously. I would like to welcome Debbie Egerton from DCCRC, who is the chair, and Susie Keys, funding consultant from the Dufferin County Cultural Resource Circle, to discuss the request for use of train station expansion. But before you step up, Councillor Andrews is just going to step out. Welcome, Debbie. Come on up.
Good evening, Council, and congratulations to everybody from the DCCRC. We are so proud to have such a diverse and exciting council this year. I'd like to introduce my comrades. To my right, I have Sharon Rigby, who is a newer member of our DCCRC board. To my left, I have Charity Fleming, who also is a fairly new member of our board. And of course, we have Susie Keys, who is our funding finder. Tonight, we're going to take a little history lesson because we have a couple of new people here. So we're going to do a real quick backtrack of what the DCCRC is. The DCCRC was founded in 2014. It started off with a dream and Facebook. I'll swear to Facebook. Luckily, we were able to find the people we needed to be able to get this moving forward. We put forward a dinner. Oh, I did. I apologize. I forgot somebody and I'm in trouble for it. I want to introduce Community Elder Karen Vandenberg, who is, of course, the community elder here. Sorry. So like I said, we did dinners to raise money to be able to do the Indigenous Peoples Day the first year. We did a taco fundraisers. We did everything we could think of at that time because we didn't know anything about grants or community grants that the council had at the time. That year we also brought entertainment to the council chambers. We had Valerie and the Dreamcatchers came to perform their song that was out that year. It was a great, exciting time for us all. And it turned out the premier showed up at Indigenous Peoples Day because her daughter lives in town. So her daughter told her about it. And the premier showed up and it was great. We had about 3,000 people our first year. And that was exciting. As we go forward, in the last, I guess, 5 years, we've put in a permanent flag at Alder Arena. We have the crosswalk downtown, which I thank Lisa for because she was a big pusher for that too. And of course, we have the incredible Medicine Wheel Garden that the town council supported, as did several other people. And it's a very, unfortunately, needs a little more directional signage so people know where to find it, but we're getting it there. Sorry. So as we have learned, we have about a 2% population of Indigenous people within Dufferin County and Orangeville. I happen to know personally of a residential school survivor who lives in Orangeville. And I met her once, and she was an incredible lady. So we can go on.
Miigwech, thank you so much, Debbie. We have been so excited to come and to present to you. And Debbie jumped just right in. She was so excited. We've been waiting for a number of months and of course for the election to pass, and happy to be here today in person. So thank you for your time. We actually, if it's okay to backtrack a little bit, we wanted to start with a traditional opening by Elder Karen, which she is joining us through Zoom. And that's just following traditional Indigenous protocol. So that's something important to us. And then I can introduce myself and speak to what I gave you in the little bag. Elder Karen.
Bonjour, can you hear me? Chiwas Nudakwe, Naduchakash, Nagig Dodem, Chimnasing Dunjaba. Greetings, I'm Best Color of the Northern Lights Woman, Otter Clan from the Big Island, Christian Island. I'd like to open with a prayer. Grandfather, Sacred One, teach us love, respect, bravery, truth, humility, honesty, and wisdom, so that we may heal the earth and heal each other. Miigwech.
Miigwech, everybody. You're helping us along tonight. In terms of my introduction, Ani Buju, Anishinaabe, Kwe, and Dewey. So hello, I am an Anishinaabe woman or life carrier of the original peoples. And the Dinjagas, Charity Fleming, or Anunkwe, Star Woman. I grew up in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, and my home community is Wabascang First Nation. And it's an interesting place. I live in Bellwood in Center Wellington, but I'm one street away from Dufferin County. And so I found my home. This is the closest urban Indigenous community. And so I found my home here in the last 2 years. And I've been so impressed by the work that's been done here in Orangeville. Happy to see many of the faces that I've seen before at our events. And I have to say, thank you, Debbie, for speaking to the things that have been done and the work that has been put in towards truth and reconciliation. Because I think Orangeville has been an exemplary town in terms of the crosswalk and the medicine garden. When I tell people back home in my home community that there is a medicine garden, that we can go and harvest our medicines, or even other people in Kitchener, Waterloo, and other urban Indigenous areas, that is something incredible to us. And so we're grateful for the space that has been created for us. And we're here tonight to ask for more space, if that's possible, so that we can continue this tradition of truth and reconciliation and steps towards that, but also to be more firmly rooted here as Indigenous people and sharing more about our Indigenous culture and heritage with all our relations. In terms of what's in the bag, I don't know if anyone peeked in that bag. I meant to share right away, but in there is sweetgrass. And so sweetgrass is one of our traditional medicines. And you can go ahead and look in there if you like. It's in a circle. And much of what we do is in a circle. It reminds us of this cycle of life and the stages of life. But the sweetgrass, there's a lot of teachings that goes with that. It's the hair of Mother Earth, and again, one of our traditional medicines. But the teachings I've been given, I grew up picking sweetgrass at times outside of Sault Ste. Marie, and you had to walk into the river, and you get stuck in the mud sometimes. And that is part of the teachings, that, you know, to search for sweet things and to search for medicine. Sometimes it's a muddy trail, or we need to be trail blazers and pioneers in that work. And so I wanted to present that with you today, because we appreciate the work that has gone into walking that path of reconciliation and healing for us. And we hope that this work will continue to be sweet. And then the 3 strands of the sweetgrass are to remind us of, well, different teachings, unity of mind, body, soul, but also harmony, peace, and unity of kinship and all our relations. So we're grateful for this time. The tobacco, there's lots of teachings with that as well. It represents interpersonal treaty. So that's why it was important that I handed that to you. Tonight, I'd like to say that it represents a recognition of the time that you're giving us today, and a hope that you'll continue to give us your time so that we can continue to grow as a cultural circle here. And then I just gave you a pin, Every Child Matters pin, which I had done at my mental health clinics. And I just shared those with everyone because the art is beautiful. Alana Jewell, if you ever want to look her up. And so thank you, Miigwech, for the honor of your time and for hearing this request.
I think, I'm not sure. Ani Bojo, my name is Sharon Rigby. Sharon Rigby, Indigenous Cause, Caledon East, the Dunjaba, and Mekwon Dodom. I am from Caledon East. I work in Orangeville, and I'm part of the Bear Clan. And I'm super excited to be here and presenting in front of you all. And I look to Orangeville as a leader in Dufferin County, largest population here, and excited to move forward together, hopefully.
Okay, so essentially what I think the big ask, which was on the screen, is that we would love to partner with the town to use the train station space. And we have a lot of vision, a lot of passion, a lot of excitement for this potential opportunity. And we'll just go through, to us it's important, and why I presented the medicines, and we're using our Indigenous language, and we have Elder Karen with us, you know, governing our presentation. It's important to be rooted in Indigenous culture and knowledge. And so we want to present to you our vision of how we would use this space using the 4 directions. So we always start at in Anishinaabe culture, start in the eastern direction or eastern door. If you want to just, next slide. And that was just showing where we are in the medicine circle. And the medicine circle is important to us, again, as I spoke to the circle connections, just in terms of holistic understandings of wellness and community. And right now for us as Indigenous people, reclamation and reconnection to our wellness. So vision, I don't know if, we didn't really decide who exactly is speaking to what, but did you want me to go through and you'll jump in? Okay.
Sure, yeah.
So the Eastern direction is for vision, and for us, that the role of elders is important in the vision, and that's why we do have elder advisors who have been so passionate. Elder Karen, thank you so much. She has been passionately working away and excited and bringing people together, and also providing her traditional wisdom and knowledge to help support this vision. If we had space and land, we would have ceremony to be able to support the further development of this vision. And this part of the circle reminds us for strategic vision that we want to manifest practice to develop of course, our traditions and ensure that we are well informed with decision making as part of that strategic vision. And then in terms of our larger vision for the community, we want to really provide a place and have a place that we can develop as a circle, as the Dufferin County Cultural Resource Circle, but then also provide a place for that historical continuity and ensure that in that vision we have a responsibility not only to our Indigenous people, to the urban Indigenous community, but also, like I said, to all our relations, to all our kin, to share our knowledge, the traditional knowledge that we have, an opportunity to engage with us as Indigenous people. We have a vision of really stepping forward in continued truth and reconciliation. And there's lots, I think, to our vision, a vision to be a strong, cohesive circle, a vision to have a stable place where we can invite more into our circle, where we can teach more about our culture. For me, I think often of the Anishinaabe prophecy. If you haven't heard of it, it's called the 8th Fire Prophecy. And it talks about a vision. Each fire essentially is an era or time period, and it was given long ago. And the way that the elders speak to it is that we've passed through each one of the fires. We're now in the 6th fire or 7th fire. And if you look back, it's a prophecy, but also one that demonstrated a fulfillment of prophecy in terms of migration and what happened to the original peoples here on Turtle Island. Right now, it's believed that we're in the 6th fire of that prophecy, and that's a time where we can choose. And I think we've all experienced in the last year or so with the discovery of the unmarked graves and increased social consciousness of Canadians, of our shared history, that we really need to take steps, dramatic steps towards truth and reconciliation. And so the 6th fire talks about going into this time of the 7th fire and 8th fire. And the 7th fire is a time of the Oshiki Bimatazig, and it's called the New People. And the New People connect on the trail and teachings of our elders. They pick up the knowledge and the teachings of the elders, and they walk forward in reconciliation with our non-Indigenous kin and relations. And so for us, our vision is that we can do this in local space, connected to local land, connected to our culture, and connected to all our relations. I don't know if you want to add anything to that. Okay, next slide. I love vision. Did you want to?
So yeah, the phase two, and we're looking at mostly for me, when I think of that, I think of the relationships and building on those relationships. And should we have a proper space that we can call home, we would like to incorporate or begin some things like that we have on there, the Manuman Cafe and Gallery. Manuman means wild rice in Ojibwe. We want to have opportunities to like historically we always had a kinship before we actually had a relationship. And in kinship, you do things like sharing food together, smoking a pipe together, giving gifts together, like how we have done with you today. So part of us being able to build relationships in the community is having this home and having maybe a wonderful kitchen where we could share those culinary tastes together, and also have an opportunity to allow our other relations to come into and share with us, and to sort of have a cultural hub here in the city. The train station would be an awesome place for us to gather and to do those things.
And we would love for it to be a multi-purpose cultural center, reclaiming our Indigenous traditional food knowledge is important, and that kinship. And part of the vision of the cafe as well, and in that relating to one another, when we say all our relations, to us, the relationships are about reciprocity. They're about respect. They're about renewal. And that's one pathway that we see food as being an opportunity both to generate potentially to generate revenue or income as well for the space, but also to connect people to culture. Other things that we would love to do. So I'm a mental health specialist, and I'm currently adapting. I'm very proud of it. I am currently adapting structured psychotherapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, Indigenous adapting it. I'm starting research with Waypoint Mental Health, which is, where are they located? I think in Barrie. Everything's virtual, so we've been doing everything virtually. And McMaster School of Medicine, and we are starting to research that. So I'd love this to also be a place that we could potentially support, mental health needs in the community in Indigenous adapted way, or provide workshops and provide more education to support that important healing of historical trauma.
Charity, if I could interrupt just for a second. Just in the interest of time, we want to make sure we have enough time for questions from members of council. So if we could get to the ask within kind of the next 2 minutes, that would be wonderful. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Let's do that.
Okay, for the ask, what we have presented to council 2 options to how we could make use of the train station. By building an additional building to give a little more space. If you would like to take a look at that in your work, if you have it, can we put that up, please? Yeah, option 1, we'll start there. So we have 2 different options. We're kind of enjoying both ideas. This here.
We
no,
need the outside.
I need the outside first. There should be
Site plan.
Site plan, yeah. Okay, so this is one of the site plans where we would be building a building alongside the train station, and we would be putting in an atrium between the railway station going into the new building. The purpose of putting in the atrium is very kind of metaphoric, in that you're going from the train station where the Indigenous children would have been put onto trains and then taken to residential schools. So what we're looking at doing with this is the train station, you're moving from the past into a future of healing and cohesiveness within the rest of within all of our relations, so that we all grow together and we all learn to heal together. That is the one idea. Of course, we'd be putting in an extra parking space, as you can see there, and have left some extra green space where we could put gardens in for our medicines, or we could grow vegetables to use inside to cook with. Okay, can you go? Okay, this would be what it would look like inside. So we would have a room where you could gather. There is storage, office spaces for any of the community who needs to have a spot to put whatever they need, whoever needs a space would have that option. There's plenty of office space in there. There's a reception area. So somebody would always be at the front to greet people as they're coming in and get them in touch with whomever. There's a meeting room for any organization or any community member who needs a place to meet that would be available. We're talking about taking out one set of bathrooms and putting in a proper kitchen in that, right? The one just off the event space, it would be taken out, and a full proper kitchen, industrial kitchen would be put in there so that it would meet up to the code with the public health. Can you put up the other slide? The front first?
Don't see it.
No, did you get the front version of this? Okay. Can you go back to the other one? The other front? Sorry. Site plan. So the difference between the two site plans, sorry, is where the building would be put. That building, instead of being alongside the train station, would go in the back of the train station. And again, the atrium would be the connecting points between the two structures. And then when we look inside, that would be the other one. This is what you would see. It's fewer office spaces, still a ton of room and a lot of opportunities to be able to make everybody comfortable within here. There is storage spaces in there. There is whatever we need, whatever anybody needs would be available in the building. So this is what it is that we're asking for, is the opportunity to build a true cultural center here in Orangeville. And the concept I kind of see happening in the same token is maybe one day we'll get all the cultures together and we'll create a Orangeville Multicultural Festival. But when we talk about a multicultural festival, we're talking about every single culture within the town, within the county, coming in and creating a space in that, because there's tons of ground to do it. And we create a whole festival around the food, the culture, the traditions, the dresses, the artwork, the whatever else they want to put out. And that is how we can continually bring financial money into that building, is through doing these types of events. And they are possible to do in getting the cooperation.
Wonderful. I want to thank all of you very, very much for your presentation. I'm going to turn it over to members of council. I know Councillor McIntosh had a question to start with.
Thank you, Your Worship. I also like to echo my congratulations on a wonderful presentation. This question is probably through Your Worship to Mr. Osmond. I understand the library is currently using that building. Do we have any idea when they'll be out of there?
Through Your Worship to Councillor McIntosh. Yes, the library currently is temporarily housed in that facility until at least mid-2023. So we're probably talking somewhere around May, June of 2023. Once the elevator is completed in Mill Street, then we'll be moving back. But there has been some demand on that facility, so it's one thing we would look at if we get more into 2023.
No, thank you.
That's good. Deputy Mayor. Oh, yeah, go ahead, Councillor Sherwood.
Through you, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming. It's always nice to see you, you lovely ladies. I'm so thrilled to hear the passion and the vision that you have. And yes, I can see where you would think that this would be a good spot for it, but I visualize this not really being a good location. There's only because there's really nothing around there that draws people. I think you would be better somewhere downtown, like And my next thing, I'm just going to make one more comment. This is a significant piece of real estate that the town owns. We don't have a lot of real estate. Is your ask for the whole 8 acres, just the building, and you're asking for it to be donated? So there's a couple little things there that I have. The fact that, like, I think of this real estate being very significant to us to just give, and I just don't know if this is a good location for you.
The reason I'm looking at it, sorry, through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Sherwood, the reason I'm looking at this space is because it is actually the best location for what we are looking at. And part of that is that the walking trail that will be going in will be going right across there. That's the Credit Valley walkway, I think they are calling it right now. And what we have thought, we have been in touch with other Indigenous groups along that same pathway. And we're working with them to try and create a whole tourism aspect out of it, where the Indigenous people who would walk that trail traditionally would be coming up, and we would have celebrations at each location as everybody travels together. These sort of things are actually highly done and very well respected, and people love to see this kind of thing happen. And the train station, as I said, Ms. Sherwood, is that it's metaphorically the correct place, because that train station is how we're going to find a way to heal. I know it doesn't sound logistical for most people, but when you stop and you think about the trauma some of these people have come through, that train station, walking through there, through the atrium with the medicines growing, and into a building, is coming from their past and bringing a healing to their future. And that's metaphorically why it would work. It's the place that would work the best.
Thank you so much, Debbie.
Oh, absolutely.
Sorry,
Sharon,
if
go
I
ahead.
may as well, Madam Mayor and Madam Councillor. I think as well, when we're looking at an Indigenous Cultural Center, we do need some amount of green space. We need the green space for our ceremonies, and you know, the concept of moving downtown. I work in Orangeville here, and when I'm trying to park, I have an issue with that sometimes, and I feel that the train station has ample parking, and we have areas there to put more parking. If we were to host a powwow, we would have people coming from all over. There's a powwow circuit that happens all summer. Every weekend is booked, and you have upwards of about 4,000 people coming to these sort of things. Sometimes, you know, other workshops or whatever that we could also hopefully be able to participate in here in the city. I don't think the downtown core would be able to handle that. And that's why I look towards the train station as well, saying that, you know, we have the green space and we would have ample parking, and perhaps any businesses that would be in that area would also benefit from it as well, and the overflow going to downtown.
Yep, go ahead, Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, thank you. And just my second question was, were you asking for the whole 8 acres or just the building? Because now you're mentioning about land for powwow. Again, I'm being very protective of this land because we don't have this kind of land. We have other people that are showing interested in things in there. Like we have demands from us for affordable housing and you know, trails. So there's all kinds of people out there with visions for that land. So we have to be very strategic what we're going to use that land for. So again, I'm going to put my question back to you. You're asking for the full 8 acres or just the building, because you just alluded about having land.
What I think Sharon was referring to is, as we have always done, we would be, of course, willing to pay for costs to be able to use the land. But it would be an opportunity for a bigger space for us to be able to hold a proper powwow. And unfortunately, because of some of the new restrictions up at Island Lake, that area is not quite as conducive for the powwows that we do. One second.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Madam Councillor. I've worked in a lot of these urban organizations and I can attest to the parking issue. But what we have here is we're creating a multi-million-dollar enterprise. If the Friendship Center, for example, in Midland has a budget of $4.5 million every year. We're bringing in new jobs. We're bringing in opportunities for the youth, all the youth in Orangeville and Dufferin County to do co-ops. When we talk about the walking trail, we would be active participants in supporting that trail, as would all of our sister organizations from the MNO in Midland all the way down to here. So what we're talking about is an integrated effort, something that links not only the people in Orangeville, but all the people along that trail as it used to be. It's a collaborative event. And with all of the things, I've been writing proposals furiously, and we're looking at just in programming money alone, at least $2 million. So we're looking at creating jobs. We're looking at becoming a destination. The gallery, right now, I've just written 2 proposals to have art shows. And these would be showing emerging contemporary Indigenous artists so that we can introduce that to new patrons. But what's really important is that there is a collectors community that is around the world that looks for these kinds of shows, like the one that they have in Phoenix, the Herd Guild Museum show. So if we build a gallery and we start bringing in those shows, we're bringing in more people into Orangeville. If we're bringing them in for workshops, 3-day workshops or for festivals, we're talking about people that are going to have to stay here. They're going to have to eat here, and they're going to be shopping. So it's not just about bringing the culture in, but it's creating a cultural hub, a destination for people to come to from all over. And that would really benefit the economy and all the businesses in Orangeville. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Keys. Deputy Mayor Taylor, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. First of all, I enjoyed your presentation very much. Charity, you're an amazing speaker. Just wanted to let you know that. I enjoyed what you were saying, so thank you. The things you're saying resonates with me. I love the piece about jobs and money being invested in our community, growth, a destination for people, artists. All those things resonate. And you resonate with myself and with this group of people sitting up here. I just want to share with you guys my frustration sitting here, though. Like, you have a very benevolent cause, one that needs to be supported for sure, but you've come to us asking for a building that's worth, who knows what it's worth at this point. There's massive competition for those types of things. You haven't given a business case at all. I don't really understand what money, I don't understand what money you have, what money you're asking for. Like, it's great what you've shared with us, and I don't mean to demean it, and please don't go away here deflated or think that, the deputy mayor was rude. It's just, you haven't given us anything to react to. You have to come back with more detail. And for us to even sit here and consider it any outside of, I guess, if I was the last statement, like, there's nothing here for us to look at. So you have to give us more. And you've convinced us in terms of where the heart is, but there's way more than the heart when you're talking about taxpayers' money. So you're going to have to come back with a business case. And I don't mean that to be rude. It's just, these are the facts, right? You would know that to be true. So just want to share that.
Can you bring up the slides with the financial projections, please? No.
There was a whole business.
It's an Excel spreadsheet.
There should be an Excel.
Yeah.
Activities.
While she's looking for that, I'm just going to turn it over to Mr. Osmond, who has some commentary.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just want to make a comment. First of all, to Deputy Mayor Taylor, you're absolutely correct. So whether the town is going to propose doing something with that site, albeit the 8 acres or a few more acres besides for all these different purposes that Councillor Sherwood has mentioned, you're absolutely correct. What we would look at is the business case. So in the case of this tonight, what I would suggest is that if you would, in all fairness, everybody in the room, if you would receive this, this discussion, receive this report at this stage, this presentation, and let it go back to staff for us to review and to go over this business case. I have seen pieces of this business case. I've not seen the final version of it. The delegation has touched on a whole matter of items, from buildings to building expansions to parking lots to medicine wheels to green space for powwows and so on and so forth. When we look at it from a town perspective, we're going to look at the full view. And we're also going to look at it from a perspective that we have to allow engagement by the public. We have to allow engagement by other stakeholders. We have to take town land and put it out there so everybody can have input. So I would think that in all fairness to the delegation, is that we take a bit more time. We're not going to do this tomorrow. We need a little bit more time to take it back and review it in its full context, and then bring back to a full report to council on next steps versus getting into a debate on the presentation at this stage. Thank you.
I appreciate that very much, Mr. Osmond. And the only additional comment that I would make on that is that we haven't seen this whole presentation yet either. So I'm hopeful that it can be sent to all members of council at the end of this meeting. Okay, we haven't gotten it yet, so we'll have a look at that.
That explains a lot.
So if we can have a look at that, that will be helpful. But as we move forward as a council, we've got some decisions to make about a number of pieces of land and things like that. And I think having an understanding of what your vision is for growth as an organization is a really key important piece for us to know, because even if it's not necessarily this lands, we know that there's somewhere along the line, if something comes up that we think would be appropriate, we know exactly what you're looking to do. So I like Mr. Osmond's suggestion of at this point, we'll do a motion to receive and we'll send it back over to staff for consideration and for review. Okay. So can I get a motion in that manner? Deputy Mayor Taylor, seconded by Councillor McIntosh. All in favor? Thank you. Thank you very, very much for being here tonight. We really appreciate it. We can get Councillor Andrews back in the room. Please just give us one moment while we wait for Councillor Andrews to enter the room again. Wonderful. Okay, we're going to move on to item 12 in the agenda, which is staff reports. Item 12.1 is the Visitor Services Agreement, CMS-2022-27. There's a recommendation in the agenda that report CMS-2022-27 Visitor Services Agreement be received, and that council authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the agreement between the Corporation of the Town of Orangeville and Theatre Orangeville for the delivery of visitor services for the period of January 1st, 2023 to December 31st, 2027. Can I have a motion for that recommendation? Mover and a seconder to put it on the floor, and then we'll have discussion. Councillor Andrews, and seconded by Councillor McIntosh. Any questions or comments from members of council? Councillor Andrews, go ahead.
I do. Thank you very much, Your Worship. And I'm not sure where this will be directed to from a staff perspective, but the question I have is, in the past, in my capacity as chair for the Business Economic Development Advisory Committee, that particular part of Theatre Orangeville, or I should say the visitors department, has provided data on the number of visitors that have come into the community. And it may be an absence because of the fact that we have had, 18, 24 months of COVID, so on and so forth, but I didn't see any documentation or any data whatsoever to provide a little more clarity to the ask, and then also supporting the hours of operation too as well.
Mr. Osmond?
Thank you, Worship. I'm going to refer that to Manager Ruth Phillips, who's on Teams, and she's been working very intimately with this agreement, and I'll leave it to her to speak to that question.
Great, thank you.
Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Andrews. That is exactly why the stats and data are not included, Councillor Andrews. The centre is really just getting up and running again following almost a 3-year shutdown due to COVID. So while they did continue to field inquiries by phone and email during the shutdown period, the doors opening up are just nicely resumed. So the figures are lower. And that's because of a pandemic. And for the first 2 years of that pandemic, there really wasn't anywhere for people to go. So we will certainly continue to report to the Economic Development Committee as we move forward with those statistics. And I fully expect to see a continual and gradual increase in the numbers.
That answer your question, Councillor Andrews?
It does.
Do you have a follow-up?
I guess I did, and it is just pertaining to the actual length of time of this agreement. And just for the sake of clarity, is there a reason that it is in fact for a 4-year period? And again, I'm parlaying it into the next agenda item, which is in fact a 2-year agreement. So I'm just looking for some clarity. I'm not sure, Ms. Phillips, or that would come from Mr. Osmond.
Mr. Osmond?
Through you, Your Worship, our CAO may wish to add comments to this. Typically, these agreements are 5 years in length, and the visitor services agreement is proposed for a 5-year term, as it was in the last term, as the last one was. Our last agreement for management of the Opera House was also 5 years. This time, we're looking at limiting it to 2 years just because within the next couple of years, as was outlined to Council during the training session, we're hoping to introduce some outdoor music in the park events in the upcoming 2 years, look at potentially an outdoor art exhibit, and depending on the outcomes of that, and we will be certainly consulting with Theatre Orangeville for their advice and guidance on this, but our goal might be following that, and once we determine what genres and what kind of success we have with those types of events, our goal might be to secure the theatre, the Opera House, for a few nights a year, 7 or 8 nights potentially, so that we could also hold events there. And we would do it during the theater's dark periods, the times when they were not already operational. And that's a good chunk of the summer months. So we might want to take a Saturday night or a Sunday afternoon throughout the summer at different periods throughout the year, so that we can continue to grow that performing arts tourism driver that is outlined quite clearly within the tourism strategy and action plan. We will do this hand in hand and with guidance by Theatre Orangeville, but by making this a 2-year agreement, it provides us with some time to test out the waters and look at what kind of genres and performing arts might do really well, and then go back and build those kind of town-owned days of the Opera House into an agreement moving forward.
If I may, Your Worship, to Ms. Phillips, so then to the question, which is regarding the 4-year agreement for the visitor services, would it not be prudent for us to look at something that would be similar, or is there a reason why that you're looking at a 4-year period for one versus the 2? I understand the 2-year. I've read the report and also understand what you've spoken about. But just again, for my curiosity to understand exactly the reasoning behind the 4-year agreement.
The agreement is actually a 5-year agreement.
Okay.
And it was in the last agreement was also a 5-year agreement. So there's no changes being considered for visitor information services. The program is moving well. It's rebuilding quite nicely, and the theatre does an excellent job of providing visitor services on our behalf at the centre. So there were no changes anticipated that would make us looking at shortening up that agreement or changing it substantially. The only reason we want to relook at the Opera House is that we may want to use some of those dates. And by putting those dates into a calendar or into a new agreement with the theater, we're quite clear on what our expectations are moving forward. Again, that Opera House agreement would be done very much in consultation with Theatre Orangeville.
No, I appreciate all the detail and understand where we are with both agreements as a separate piece. I'm just wondering, and I know that it's premature because of the fact that the visitor services will be coming back online. We know that it has been a very tough last couple of years, but the point that I just wanted to make, I know that some people, of course, have maybe moved to an online type of investigation too as well. And I compliment the staff that exists at the visitor services, because I've had a number of people who've come into our community and have been just wowed by the exemplary response and support that they've received. But I'm just wondering if, in maybe a future report that we have an understanding. I know that those particular reports also identify the number of visitors that ended up taking a look at the online versus on-site. And it's just a matter of taking a look at that data and, supporting some of the decisions that are being made here.
We would be happy to come back, and I think perhaps an opportune time might be, things started to reopen really this March. So perhaps in the summer or following the summer of 2023 would be a good time to kind of come back to council with a report showing how that growth has taken place.
Thank you, Ms. Phillips.
Thanks.
That's all I have.
Councillor Prendergast, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you very much. I would like to ask a question about Theatre Orangeville's office space. So at the Visitor Center, there's 800 square foot office space for 2 enclosed and 2 open workstations, correct?
Correct.
So, and in reference in the next agenda note for the Opera House Management and Cultural Initiatives, if I can jump ahead, there's an in-kind expense for an $11,200 office space, administration space. Is that the same space as the Visitor Services office?
Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Prendergast, the visitor information staff are sit at the front counter and serve as general reception to people coming in with tourism inquiries. That may hold 2 desks, I'm not sure. Theatre Orangeville's administrative staff are also housed in that building in approximately 800 square feet of a 1,200 square foot facility. So all of the administrative staff for Theatre Orangeville are also housed in the visitor center, but they are in the back of the office, consuming approximately 800 square feet.
Okay, thank you. So there isn't a tertiary location for Theatre Orangeville office space? No? Okay, thank you. I was just wondering what the other expense was in kind in the Opera House Management and Cultural Initiatives agenda item, which references an $11,200 expense, but that must reference the annual rental expense at the visitor
That's
services? Correct. Okay, thank you very much for your clarity.
That's equivalent to 800 square feet at a pretty conservative estimate of $14 a square foot.
Are there any additional questions from members of council on this item? Oh, Mr. Osmond, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to council. Just for clarity, you got to keep these two agreements decoupled. But just for clarity, one of the things we're doing in all of our contracts that we're doing going forward, we started this past year, and you're getting the benefit of it now. And what Manager Ruth Phillips has basically said to you is $11,000 of cost of expense that goes into the office space is in kind. So what we tried to do is try to figure out what the in-kind contribution is to a theater, to the visitor center, where the case would be. We're doing likewise for other agreements, the OSPCA agreement, and so on and so forth. So you're going to see these coming forward showing some in-kind value, because we haven't been showing the in-kind value. There's actual funds that are going to go to Theatre Orangeville for the visitor center and so on, 2 different agreements. But we tried to capture the in-kind as best we could, very, very conservative. But it's a start, and this is something you're going to see going forward in all of our contracts.
Thank you, Mr. Osmond. Councillor Sherwood, go ahead.
Yes, through you, Mayor Post. So getting a little bit more specific detail for the in-kind, Do we provide snow removal service and grass cutting service, and has that been factored in as some in kind? Mr. Osmond?
Mr. Osmond?
Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Sherwood. Not really. When it comes to that facility, of course, we house our own staff upstairs, so it's kind of a green space that we had to maintain anyway. So we didn't factor into park space, and it's not factored into the agreement. It's strictly to do with the facilities themselves.
That's all the questions on this item. Okay, so we have a mover and a seconder for 12.1. All in favor? Any opposed? Councillor Stevens? Item 12.2, the Opera House Management and Cultural Initiatives Agreement, CMS-2022-28. There's a recommendation in the report that report CMS 2022-028 Opera House Management and Cultural Initiatives Agreement be received, and that council authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the Opera House Management and Cultural Initiatives Agreement for the period of January 1st, 2023 to December 31st, 2024, as outlined in attachment 1. Can I have a mover and a seconder to get this on the floor? Deputy Mayor Taylor, and seconded by Councillor Stevens. Any questions? Deputy Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So to me, this agreement with Theatre Orangeville has always been a unique one to me. Maybe I'll stare at you as I'm saying this, Mr. Osmond. Like, you don't see a town and a theater have this kind of connection that we have. And the reality in my mind is we're tied. So without the support of the town, the theater would struggle. Without the theater, the town would struggle. And so, you know, we're sort of married to each other. And in lots of ways, I would call Theatre Orangeville kind of a top 3 thing in our town that if you're telling people, why would you come? These are one of the top 3 reasons why you would come to our town, is you want to go and see Theatre Orangeville. So I guess when I look at this agreement, you know, and I did have discussions with your predecessor about this agreement, to me, like, I'd like to see us increase as we go and recognize that unique relationship. And yes, there's things in here that I like what you're doing in terms of you and your staff are doing in terms of trying to measure it. I think that's right, because there's things in here you can't really put a monetary value on. And then even where Councillor Sherwood is going about the grass, I mean, we could go down a rabbit hole forever trying to figure out the value. I would just say from a pure cash component standpoint, I'd like to see us keep up. And this organization, whether, you know, how to put it, but wages are continuing to be an issue. The theater is hard pressed. If we got to the point where people who were in our town working for the theater had to leave, there's going to be a tremendous gap in terms of what it costs to actually do that job versus what we're paying them to do the job as we sit here today. So I don't want to say it's woefully unfunded, because I said at the very beginning, it's this kumbaya, lovely relationship. I just think that we should be coming forward more. And the report's already written, but that's one person's opinion who actually sits at the table and gets the vote. And I'd love to have a chat about that, get your thoughts on it. But the reality is, like, this is a jewel that we should be not generous, because it sounds like we're the keepers, but we should be more of a partner with them and enabling and helping. And I don't have a suggestion of what that should be. I just want to put that on the floor.
Mr. Osmond, do you have a comment that you wanted to make on that?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to Deputy Mayor Taylor. Absolutely. I mean, there's no doubt that we have a wonderful partnership with theater. The agreement you're seeing in front of you today is the product of discussions with theater, and we've signed off basically on the agreement. I think the question you have on the table in terms of the partnership and maybe putting more money, if you would, to theater goes along with a closer look at theater. Are we doing the kinds of things you want us to see us do in that partnership? You're right. We have a very unique partnership. We have a theater in this heritage building that's got a long history with the town. And once you go into the discussions and all the things that we've built the theater on, working with the town over the years, you know, it has a lot of value. So there may be more benefit to the 2-year agreement than I thought. So if this council wishes to maybe take a look behind the scenes on what we're doing with theater, what other theaters are doing in comparative data, if you would, with other municipalities that, you know, do a similar operation or some different ways of operating. Do they fund a little higher or a little lower? What do they do? I think it might, this 2-year agreement might give you more benefit that way as well. So I think that, you know, our discussions with theater, we talk to, you know, David Nair and his staff on a regular basis. We obviously have a relationship, and I think the agreement at this stage is a good agreement. I think it adds value in terms of being able to open up and discuss other ways of adding value to the theater. What Manager Phillips didn't mention is that we don't operate theaters as a town. What we like to do is bring in entertainment. What we'd like to do is create more, we will by pure default, if you would, create employment for theater. You know, there are sound people, there are light people, and their staff that are engaged running theater may find themselves supporting us in that way. So that's why we don't have all the answers. And so what we've done in a debate, not debate, discussion we've had internally is, okay, how do we move along the tourism strategy, take a look at some of the things we can build in this community in terms of entertainment and bringing in more events. And in doing that, maybe we have a better, bigger partnership, if you would, with theater. So that's why the 2-year agreement is more timely for us, gives us a bit of time to do the work, and maybe gives us a bit of time to discuss some of the things you're talking about and bring it back to council and have a discussion on that before we move forward past the 2 years.
Thank you, Mr. Osmond. I think that's well said. My confusion on that is, so then what would next steps be? And I think, you know, we've got Mr. Nairn in the room. In my mind, next steps is the theater needs to come back to this group in a period of time. Like, is it 6 months? Is it a year? But you wouldn't do it 2 years because you'd want to prepare for that piece, right? So maybe my question is to Mr. Nairn, would the theater come forward in a truncated period of time to offer a new proposal and relationship with the town and talk about an increased partnership and potentially financial arrangement? And what would be best? How would we do that?
Welcome, Mr. Nairn. Did you know you were going to be on the hot seat tonight?
I did not.
Over to you.
Unaccustomed as I am to public speaking, Your Worship, through you to Councillor Taylor, of course, we'd be prepared to come back to council at any time council wishes. We'd also like to make a more formal presentation for the sake of perhaps Councillors Prendergast and Stevens, who are new to council and perhaps don't understand the breadth of what the relationship is. Mr. Osmond is quite right. The relationship that the theater has with the town of Orangeville is extremely unique, both from a municipal level and also from a theatrical professional level, and is one that is rather the envy of many organizations across the country. The relationship has been one for almost 30 years now, since the Opera House opened. And of course, what we're talking about is a management agreement. We manage the facility on behalf of the taxpayers of Orangeville. We're not just Theatre Orangeville is not just the beneficiary. Orangeville Music Theatre, professional or for-profit and not-for-profit user groups that come in to provide concerts or events or business meetings or karate clubs that come in to do their katas. So we coordinate all of that and provide the technical expertise. The town has invested a lot of money in the gear that's upstairs. Also by way of interest, Councillor, sorry, forgive me, I'm used to Councillor Taylor, Deputy Mayor Taylor. We did a little bit of homework just in case I had to, this might be come forward. In the last 10 years, because we are a not-for-profit registered charity, the theater, we are able to access grants and funds that the town is not able to do so. Over the course of the last 10 years, we've been able to source approximately $750,000 in capital improvement into the facility. New seats, new lighting system. I know that Councillor Prendergast is interested in is that we were able to reduce the energy consumption in that space by 94% annually by the grants that we're able to achieve. We have grants in play right now that are going to about accessibility. We cannot put an artist or counselor or anyone who might have accessibility challenges onto that stage unless they go on the stairs. So we have a grant in play right now for a lift system that would allow us to be able to do that. Our hearing assist system, all of those upgrades that, because of, you know, the code is not right on the draperies that are the fireproofing needs to be updated. So because of our expertise in those areas, we're able to bring that forward and we're able to source those. So as I say, it's approximately $750,000. Those are the assets of the town of Orangeville and the taxpayers of Orangeville. They are not the assets of Theatre Orangeville. Those capital investments and those how we've been able to, obviously we benefit from them, as does any other group that comes in and rents the facility, or an OMT or anyone like that comes in to use the facility are the beneficiaries of that. There is no facility like it in Southern Ontario. We've prepared reports for past councils, and we'll do, if it's the wish of this council, demonstrating that the facility has no equal in Southern Ontario in terms of its affordability and its accessibility and what it provides for the people of this community. There is no equal anywhere in Southern Ontario, and we will gladly demonstrate that again to council. So anyone who comes in, whether it's a sports organization or anybody who wants to use the space, of how we coordinate for them. So.
Thank you, Mr. Nairn. Deputy Mayor Taylor has one additional follow-up.
So, Mr. Nairn, you had me at hello. You did not need to go into your spiel. I am here to support you. You didn't need to sell me. How's that? But here, I just want to close this with you. So what we're talking about is you've got your agreement here today, and I assume that that's going to be passed. But what we're talking about is can you come back in the next however many months with a business case, and we can talk about a future relationship that's potentially different than the one we have now, that would be more beneficial for the town and more beneficial for the theater. So something along those lines. Is that something that we can do, and can we do it in a 6-month window kind of thing?
Through you, your worship, to Deputy Mayor Taylor, absolutely. Whatever pleases council in terms of what that timeline might look like. Perhaps further discussion with perhaps concerned members of council and Mr. Osmond and his staff will allow us to bring that report forward at council's pleasure.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nairn. Councillor Sherwood has a question, and then Councillor Andrews.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I have 2 questions, actually, and they're probably going to be addressed to 2 separate staff members. So I'll start with question number 1 that's going to be either answered by our town treasurer, Ms. Nandini, or Ms. Phillips. I believe they're on virtually. Okay, so in number, I'm going to the Opera House agreement, and number 5F mentions that the town treasurer via the manager of economic development will be receiving semi-annual reports regarding the activities, fees, statements, so basically the financials submitted. Question is, have they been received? Are they received? And are they not shared with council? Because I don't recall ever seeing any financials in our previous term.
Ms. Syed, over to you.
To you, your worship, to Councillor Sherwood. No, we haven't been receiving any financials per se, and my understanding would be that this is moving forward request, not a historical practice that we have in place.
If I could add to that, your worship,
Thanks,
in
Ms.
fact,
Phillips,
the theatre has been quite diligent in forwarding their year-end reports and semi-annual reports as requested. They have not been forwarded to council, but they are forwarded to the treasury for her review.
Thank you, Ms. Phillips.
So they don't become part of the town's financial records then, Ms. Syed?
No,
they're sorry. Those are the financial records that we requested are really not part of the town's financial records, Councillor Sherwood, because they are audited. They're completed independently because the theatre is a registered nonprofit that operates separately from the town of Orangeville. They are simply forwarded to the treasurer for her review, just as a kind of housekeeping gesture so that we can quickly review them, make sure that if there were any causes for concern or alarm, then the treasurer would react or speak to that. And that's probably why they are forwarded to Ms. Syed, but they've been above board and fine. It's just really a housekeeping gesture.
Okay, thank you. And Madam Mayor, one more question regarding the agreement on number 21. Just go here quickly, please. The terms of the agreement mentions that it's running for a 12-year term, but yet the dates show 2 years. Are we asking for a 12-year term, or that statement is contradictive?
Your worship.
Phillips? Yep.
Yes, through your worship, that is confusing. The reason that was left in was there are grant application opportunities that come up for Theatre Orangeville periodically, and there was one about 10 years ago that required the town or required the theatre to demonstrate that they had a 10-year lease before they could apply for a leasehold improvement grant that would support them. So that opportunity has come and gone, but I wanted to leave in the fact that they have a long-standing agreement with us, just in case another grant opportunity does arise that would enable them to apply for something, but they had to demonstrate their longevity with us.
Thank you, Ms. Phillips, because I did have a little concern that we were approving something that's like literally 3 terms ahead of us, and I was a little concerned about approving something on a future council that I think they should be approving, not me sitting here saying this should happen 12 years from now. Nothing against the theater, but thank you for clarifying that it's all based on grant applications, and that we aren't really locking into a 12-year lease, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Andrews, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. Again, exact same question, Councillor Sherwood, pertaining to this item. So if I'm correct in asking the question to Ms. Phillips, I see, of course, on page 8 of this final Opera House agreement, point number 22, this would be an amendment indicating that it is a 2-year agreement, and as has been outlined in the staff report, that the information that has been shared highlights the fact that because of all the different things that are going on, that this is the term that you're seeking council approval on, if I'm correct.
Ms. Phillips?
Through you, Your Worship, that clause speaks to should a future amendment be required to this agreement, it would be made in writing and executed by all parties. So that statement, item 22, really speaks more to Councillor Taylor's comments, where if Theatre Orangeville wanted to come back in 6 months and make a different presentation, and council wanted to make a separate recommendation for funding for 2024, that would be considered an amendment.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarification.
Thank you, Ms. Phillips. Was there any additional questions from members of council? No? Oh, Councillor Stevens, go ahead.
Just a comment, not a Your Worship. Thank you for your report off the cuff tonight. I appreciate it, and I'd love to learn more about the theater and how we can work together in the future.
Through you, Your Worship, thank you, Councillor Stevens, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead,
Yes,
Mr. Newman.
absolutely. We, at any time that we can, this is a town facility. We manage it in trust on behalf of the people of this community through working with town staff and at any time, absolutely. May I ask a question? Just around, forgive me, Deputy Mayor Taylor's comment around us coming back to council with a report. Is that something that council will determine? Do we take guidance from staff on that when we would like for that to happen?
I think you can work very closely with Mr. Osmond to determine appropriate timelines for that. I know you guys have a wonderful relationship and you do a great job managing the assets of the town. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
With no more further questions, we have a mover and a seconder on the floor. So can we just call a vote? All in favor? And is there any opposed? None opposed? Perfect. Okay, we're going to move on to item 12.3, which is 5 Henry Street, the consent agreement execution. There is a recommendation that report INS 2022-55, 5 Henry Street consent agreement, execution file number B-04/21 be received, and that council pass a bylaw included as attachment number 1 to this report to authorize the execution of a consent agreement to implement the Ontario Land Tribunal's condition of approval for this consent application. Can I have a mover and a seconder to put this on the floor? Councillor McIntosh and Councillor Sherwood seconding. I'm sure we have some questions, and before we turn it over to council for questions, I'm going to ask Mr. Ward to maybe provide a bit of history on 5 Henry Street for the benefit of the newer members of council, because I know it's been a bit of a complicated relationship. Thank you, Mr. Ward.
Sure, Your Worship, and through you. So the subject matter at 5 Henry Street dates back to a severance application that was filed to the Committee of Adjustment about a year ago. It involved the creation of a new detached dwelling lot. The property's at the corner of Henry Street and William Street, sort of a mature residential neighborhood, predominantly with single detached with some other dwelling types interdispersed within the area. So the applicant applied to sever the property. There's an existing dwelling situated closer to the intersection. They wanted to sever off the rear part, the balance, to create a new detached dwelling lot. So the application went forward to the Committee of Adjustment in December, and the committee refused the application. So the applicant appealed that refusal decision to the Ontario Land Tribunal. A hearing was held later in the spring of this year to adjudicate the appeal. The tribunal approved the application, so allowed the appeal and granted the consent. As part of that approval, there are conditions that have to be fulfilled in order for the lot to be legally created and transferred. One of those conditions in this particular instance involves the execution of an agreement. That agreement will spell out some certain items or requirements that owner must fulfill in order to actually create the lot. You know, they pertain to the installation of services and so forth. So the report really speaks to that, the principle of the agreement and the parameters around the servicing arrangements that would happen. One of the benefits of the agreement is that it's registered against the title of the property. So any future owners that might acquire the property in the future are bound to the terms and conditions of that agreement. In order to execute the agreement, there's authorization that must be granted from council to the mayor and clerk to execute that agreement on behalf of the town. That's what the essence of this report is. It's seeking that authorization to execute the agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. That was an excellent bit of history. Was there any questions from members of council before we move forward? Yep, go ahead, Councillor Sherwood.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Mr. Ward. I believe this came to Heritage Orangeville because I know that 5 Henry Street is a non-designated property. I'm trying to recall, have we seen the drawings again of the proposal? Because I think there was some concerns with the committee as to the proposal. Have we got to that part yet? Because I don't know if that came to council. I'm just trying to recall in my committee if I saw like that there was a proposed semi for that property, or was it severed to put another building that Heritage Orange was quite concerned that it flows with the neighborhood?
Mr. Ward?
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to Councillor Sherwood. I know of the subject matter you're referring to. It's a different site. It's in the William Street neighborhood. It's a property at 41 William Street, some different circumstances there. With this particular matter, I'm not certain about the heritage attributes off the top of my head. It is for a severance to sever off the balance of the property that's vacant. The existing dwelling would remain as part of this this application.
Yes, so in actual fact, Mr. Through you, I wasn't confusing it with 41 William. I'm quite aware that that's a different one. I thought something came to Heritage Orangeville regarding 5 Henry, but I could be wrong, and I'll go back and look at my records and contact you if I have any other questions.
Thanks, Councillor Sherwood. Was there any additional questions? Councillor Stevens?
Through you, Your Worship. Is there any other residents or any buddy opposing this, or has it gone to out to the community?
Mr. Ward?
Through Your Worship to Councillor Stevens, it's really past that point of consultation. The application was filed. It went through the Committee of Adjustment process. There was the notification protocols that were met as part of that exercise. Once it's appealed, the decision-making authority really moves into the hands of the tribunal. There is a consultation piece that happens through that point, but it really is at the tribunal's discretion. The decision's been made quite frankly, and we are at an implementer stage with respect to this matter.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Mr. Ward. I'm just trying to catch up.
Yeah, no problem, Councillor Stevens. That's why I asked for a little bit of a history lesson because I figured that might be the case. Deputy Mayor Taylor.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So I completely agree with our town planner. I mean, we're at the point where there's nothing to do here other than to rubber stamp this. But however, I get to sit in this chair and I sometimes get to say what I want. I'm disappointed in the owner of this property. I don't think he's been a very good citizen for that street. He has not maintained his property, nor has he been a good neighbor. And I just want to call that out. I know it's not relevant to the conversation, but it makes me angry that here we are, we're at this point where we have to allow him his severance. And if I had an option, I would say no. But he has not been a good citizen of the town, nor has he been a good neighbor to the street. And I just want to share with everyone that once it comes to council on this point, we don't have the ability to say yes or no. Well, we don't have the ability to say no. So I'll say yes, but I'll do so with an explanation. And I just wanted to get that off my chest.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. Was there any additional questions before we call a vote? Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, again, through you, Madam Mayor, to Mr. Ward. So again, just to bring me up to snuff here, when the severance gets approved, I would assume then any type of site plan applications, any development will come to us in the future, correct? Like we haven't got to that stage yet, correct?
Mr. Ward?
Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Post, because this is just, still getting the terminology, the new titles, to Councillor Sherwood. This subject matter is a detached dwelling lot severance. There is no site plan approval required for this subject matter. Unlike a typical development that might involve multi-units, et cetera, that's something that might go through a planning exercise involving site plan approval. And if there's a heritage related matter, whether that's to the property or to an adjacent property, that's something that would go before Heritage Orangeville for their review and comment. The consent, again, it's been approved conditionally, so those conditions are quite specific in the decision rendered by the tribunal with respect to the matters that have to be fulfilled, one of which being, and it's the main instrument to this matter, is the execution of this agreement. So once those conditions are met, the property becomes a legal entity that can be conveyed to a new owner, and there really is no further decision-making by the town except for, say, a building permit issuance for a future dwelling.
Mr. Ward, Councillor Sherwood.
So, Mr. Ward, you can now see my comment the other day when I talked about your department being so confusing.
That's right.
Not you personally, but thank you. You have a vast amount of knowledge. Thank you.
Okay, we've got a mover and a seconder, so we just need to call the vote. All in favor? And is there any opposed? Seeing none. All right, we'll move on to item 13, which is correspondence. There's a recommendation in the agenda that the following correspondence be received. It's item 13.1 through 13.12. Was there any, actually, I'll get a motion first to approve or to receive. Councillor Andrews and Deputy Mayor Taylor. Was there any questions on any specific item of correspondence? Councillor Andrews.
Thank you, Your Worship. And through you, I just wanted to make a comment based on item 13.4. I know that we have passionate community members who take a look at situations that may be in their neighborhood, but I was just a little concerned about the comment that was in this particular letter to council and to the town that the item that is referenced was kept quiet, which has certainly not been the case. This is regarding barricades and at Hanson and also College. So very much taken care of by town staff and those that are associated to it. And I believe further communication has been made to the individuals who have sent correspondence to town.
Yeah, that's correct. Was there any additional comments on any particular correspondence items? No. Okay, we will call the vote. All in favor? And any opposed? Seeing none. Okay, we will move on to item 14, which is committee and board minutes. Recommendation that the minutes of the following meetings be received. The Committee of Adjustment minutes from August 3rd and October 5th, the Official Plan Steering Committee minutes from April 19th and August 18th, the BIA minutes from February 17th, March 17th, May 19th, June 16th, July 21st, September 15th, October 20th, and the library board minutes from June 22nd, August 31st, and the Police Service Board minutes from September 20th. This was a bit of a cleanup during the election, so can I get a motion to approve these minutes? Councillor Andrews, Councillor Prendergast, was there any questions about any specific item? Councillor Sherwood, go ahead.
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. Item 1414, the Orangeville Police Service Board minutes. This may go to the clerk or perhaps the chair of our Police Services Board. It's just me nitpicking. Item 23, the minutes need to be corrected to say Ray Osmond, not Ray Osborne. So number 23 makes mention of our CAO. It's just a matter of changing his name. So I don't know if that's the clerk or your minute. I think it would be your minutes, Deputy Mayor.
It's our minutes. Thank
Deputy
you.
Mayor, go ahead.
We actually refer to the CAO as Aussie. Yes, it's code. Yes, thank you.
Okay, we'll have that correction noted. Was there any other comments about any items? Yeah, Councillor Andrews.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And this is regarding 1411, which is BIA. I know that there was a number of BIA minutes that were provided to council. And this is regarding the Santa Claus Parade. I know that we have the opportunity to provide some commentary. And I'm not referencing to the actual success of the parade, as all of us know it was a huge success. But one of the pieces that was highlighted in that minute summary is the fact that this was a pilot project. And it may be premature, but we have yet to hear what the appetite is for the BIA and the town's Community Services Department to continue this into 2023.
Perhaps I can turn that over to Mr. Osmond for comment.
Thank you, Your Worship, through you to Councillor Andrews. It was an absolute fantastic parade, and the feedback we're getting from all stakeholders is let's do this again. So yeah, I mean, the internal staff have taken it under their wing, and they have a relationship started with the BIA and some others as well, and the kinsmen as well are still at the table, so it's great to see. So I think you're going to see it grow from there, and it's still on our table internally as facilitators, but the BIA are taking a lead role, and my understanding is that we'll continue on into the future.
Well, thank you, Mr. Osmond, and if I can just express my heartfelt thanks to everyone that was involved. It was a tremendous success.
Absolutely. Was there any additional questions about any of the minutes? No. We will call the vote. All in favor? And any opposed? Seeing none. Okay, item number 15, notice a motion prior to meeting. There's only one, and it's mine regarding Bill 23, More Homes Built Faster Act. I'll read the motion in the agenda. Whereas there's a housing crisis in Ontario and delivering more housing that is affordable for all income levels is a priority for the provincial government that is shared by the town of Orangeville. And whereas Bill 23, the More Homes Built Faster Act 2022, will make substantial changes to multiple pieces of legislation and supporting regulations aimed at increasing housing supply and improving housing affordability as part of Ontario's Housing Supply Action Plan for 2022-2023. And whereas it is unclear how Bill 23 will improve housing supply and affordability, since as presented, Bill 23 will reduce environmental protection, heritage conservation, and quality urban design considerations in all development approval matters beyond such that is strictly related to housing. And whereas there are measures included in Bill 23 that will significantly reduce development charge recoveries for growth necessitated infrastructure and service improvements, and it is unclear how such measures will translate directly to improving housing affordability for residents. And whereas there are other challenges facing municipalities that affect housing supply beyond simply development costs and timelines, which will require further strategies by the province to achieve its objective of significantly increasing housing supply and affordability, including funding and accelerated implementation and approval support for significant municipal infrastructure expansions and upgrades. And whereas while Council for the Town of Orangeville generally supports many of the revisions to provincial legislation where there is a clear connection to increasing housing supply and affordability, the Town of Orangeville concurs with the Association of Municipalities of Ontario's recent submission to the Standing Committee for Bill 23, stating in part that the province has offered no evidence that the radical elements of the bill will improve housing affordability, and it is more likely that the bill will enhance the profitability of the development industry at the expense of the taxpayers and the natural environment. Therefore, be it resolved that Council for the Town of Orangeville hereby requests the province defer passage of Bill 23. Unfortunately, we missed that. It was passed today, but until such time as further analysis, consideration of consultation, feedback, and meaningful engagement has occurred with municipalities and stakeholders. And further, that the mayor be authorized to submit a letter to the provincial government which further addresses the comments and concerns of the Town of Orangeville with respect to Bill 23, generally as described in this resolution. And further, that a copy of the mayor's letter and copy of this resolution be submitted through the provincial commenting window for the More Homes Built Faster Act 2022, and that it further be circulated to the Honourable Doug Ford, Premier of Ontario, the Honourable Steve Clark, Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, the Honourable Michael Parsa, Associate Minister of Housing, the Honourable Sylvia Jones, Dufferin-Caledon, Member of Provincial Parliament, all MPPs in the Province of Ontario, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, and all Ontario municipalities. Can I have a mover for that, or a seconder, sorry, Deputy Mayor Taylor? Was there comments? Okay, Councillor McIntosh. We'll get this right one of these days.
We'll get it right in 4 years. Thank you, Your Worship. I know this bill is already passed, but I will certainly be supporting your motion. The more I read and the more I hear about this bill, the more it disturbs me. And I just don't think it's a good idea at this time. But again, it did pass today, unfortunately, but I think we should still go ahead with this, and I will be supporting it. Thank you.
Perhaps the clerk can help me with one other little piece of change in the correspondence of my motion that will say that the Town of Orangeville hereby requests the province, maybe it's repeal Bill 23 instead of defer the passage of. That might be a little more apt. Additional comments, Deputy Mayor Taylor.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I think that's great that you put that forward. I appreciate you putting the work into it, and certainly I'm very supportive of the initiative. The sad thing is the housing crisis continues, right? So they're trying to do something radical, and I applaud them for trying to do something radical. What that means for municipalities, which concerns me, is we're going to be financially hamstrung here the way that they're setting it up. So I think what we're doing is we're solving a problem potentially, and we're going to create something entirely different as a problem. So it doesn't work for me, and I just wanted to offer my support of your resolution, and kudos to you for putting it together.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Taylor, and I appreciate the help of all of town staff for helping to put this together based on the expertise of our treasurer, Ms. Syed, our planner, Mr. Ward, and of course our CAO, Mr. Osman, bringing in all their layers of expertise in drafting this. And of course, our clerk's team as well. Was there additional commentary? Yeah, Councillor Prendergast, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you for promoting this opposition to Bill 23, despite the fact that it's already passed today. Just that municipalities will end up absorbing the costs downloaded onto us with the avoidance of developmental charges, developmental charges, my apologies. And we'll see a reduction in services or an increase in tax. Looking at Orangeville with a very small square kilometer radius, not a lot of land to grow, we're going to see what I fear single dwelling homes converted to triplexes, skirting developmental charges. So we'll have no money towards parklands or other infrastructure that we need to develop as a result of that, which is sad. We do need more affordable housing. And unfortunately, this bill will also promote rent evictions when we see tenants being booted out of their current residences. As long as the developer meets an 80% affordability threshold based on market prices, they don't have to offer that same residential rental property to those previous tenants. So this could really adversely affect us here in Orangeville, and I thoroughly support you, Mayor.
Very much, Councillor Prendergast. Was there additional commentary? Yeah, Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I too will be supporting your motion. I'm very happy to see that we're strongly opposing this, and it does concern me that the province went ahead and did this. Not that I'm not in favor of housing, but we know that this ends up being much more than this, and there's no guarantees that this is going to be affordable housing. So thank you very much for bringing this forward, Your Worship. You will have my endorsement.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sherwood. Was there additional commentary? Councillor Stevens, go ahead.
Through you, Your Worship, I just want to echo everybody else. Certainly going to support your motion.
Wonderful. And if there's no other comments, oh, Councillor Andrews, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Since we happen to have Mr. Ward here, and I know that it is truly premature because we still, it just was passed today, and we do have the data and the information that this bill has imposed on municipalities across this province. But there was a piece that Councillor Pendergrass had highlighted that really intrigued me from the information that we have, and I'm just going to ask this question very quickly. Can we, in fact, handle growth on lots where the proposal, if I'm correct in what I've read, up to 3 units would be on a lot that exists in our community? To what extent would you be able to either restrict or somehow allow some of this cohabitation to exist? And I know it is premature, but I'd just like to get your take on this one particular part.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews. Mr. Ward, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you to Councillor Andrews. It's a difficult question to answer at this time with great detail and precision. I will say that the legislation as presented, and I understand it has gone through the 3rd reading. Whether or not that means it's been passed and finally approved, I'm not so sure. I'm not certain about how parliamentary proceedings function. But I will say that given that it is in this advanced stage, the likelihood for substantial change is pretty remote. That said, the change around the additional dwelling unit permission. So the legislation states that our official plan can't contain any prohibitive policies that would exclude the use of up to 3 dwelling units in any property that has a detached, a semi, or a row house. Those 3 dwelling units can be any combination. They can be 3 within the dwelling itself. There can be 2 dwellings in a detached structure, 1 in the main, or 2 in the main structure, and 1 in a detached accessory structure. In terms of what that means for us for implications, there's a lot to think about. There's additional parking. Now, the legislation does state we can't restrict parking, requiring additional spaces beyond 1 per unit. The legislation is very clear on that. It also states that we can impose minimum dwelling unit sizes. So what they're suggesting to us is we can't be restrictive with additional dwelling unit permissions in our residential areas. For us to consider, it really comes down to servicing. There's going to be additional demands potentially with the additional dwelling units. We've seen a lot of activity with secondary units as it is. Whether or not this is going to accelerate remains to be seen.
Thank you, Mr. Ward.
If I may just make a comment, Madam Mayor, I know that this is again premature. We've yet to see how it is all going to play out, but we may have to revisit some of the things that were actually decided upon in the previous term of council, one of which that comes to mind is, parking on one side of the road. If this ends up, of course, snowballing quite extensively. I really don't know if that will be the case, but we shall see.
Yeah, one problem can become others very
that's
easily. Was there additional questions? No, seeing none, I will call the vote. All in favor? And is there any opposed? And hearing none. Notice of motion at meeting. Councillor Taylor?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I did send this out to everyone, so I don't think I need to read this because we're actually going to debate it at next council. But just a top line, I want to talk about the election sign bylaw idea first off. And to me, we have a great bylaw. We did excellent work together as a team last time on the election sign bylaw and made some changes. I think for myself and some informal conversations I've had with each of you outside of this meeting, we were missing some things as we went through the process. And that would be, in my mind, I think there was too many signs on public property. This is one man's opinion. And there was too many signs in the same geographic propinquity of each other, which I felt was unnecessary. So what I'm proposing is that we discuss as a group what potentially the number of signs could be and what would be an acceptable amount in a very close proximity to each other. And that's what my notice of motion will say. And I would hope if there's other things that I've missed in the debate that we're going to have, that this group could have that discussion as well. And then the last piece to this motion is, notice of motion is that I did hear from Mr. Osmond, who said, and you're quite right, sir, is we don't require a rush on this. I mean, the election is 4 years away, as long as it meets whatever those timelines are. But I think as a group of the group sitting here, we should have our wish list and some things for our experts, which is town staff, to think of. And I think we can get better somehow as a group. So I guess I'm not necessarily worried about how this is written. It's just a matter of, can we give direction to the clerks to make some changes prior to the next election cycle? And that's where my head's at for this notice of motion.
Deputy Mayor Taylor, can you just read your motion out loud for the record?
Sure.
Thank you.
Now you're going to put me on the spot here. Yes.
Yes, I am.
Okay. Whereas the recent election cycle within Orangeville witnessed a plethora of signs for candidates, whereas the sheer number of signs on public property served to diminish the beautification of this town, and whereas the boulevards in Orangeville on public property were substantially covered with a large amount of signs, and whereas much of Orangeville public property was covered by duplicate signs of individual candidates in the same geographic area, and whereas public property duplicate signs frequently witnessed upwards of 10 signs in a row. Therefore, it be resolved that council instructs town staff to consider/research a limit on the number of signs that one candidate can place on public property. And I wrote public property. Private property would be up to the private property individual. And I just put it as an example, 200 cap on public property with a question mark. I'm not married to what that number would be. Maybe it's 10, maybe it's 300, but we should have a cap, I think. And be it resolved that council instruct town staff to consider/research how close signs from individual candidates can be to each other on public property. Example, no one candidate may have duplicate signs on public property that are within 20 feet of each other, as an example, just for conversation pieces. Lastly, once the clerk's research/recommendation is complete, but council consider/debate the recommendation and make changes for implementation for the 2026 election cycle.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Taylor. We will be discussing this one at our December 12th meeting. Was there any additional notices of motion at today's meeting? Councillor Taylor. Oh, yeah. Councillor Sherwood first.
Sorry, Your Worship. I know you have having some difficulty this evening. Before we seal this about the notice of motion coming forward to my colleague, Deputy Mayor Taylor, do you want this to be specific just for the election sign bylaw? Because where I'm going here is, do we also want to piggyback on the different, when it comes to elections, about piggybacking different types of ways to vote? Or should that be something that's a different, separate motion? Because, or are we encompassing everything election related in one motion? Because I would really like to see something along that lines being discussed.
I will maybe turn that over to our clerk for clarification.
So through you, Madam Mayor, to members of council, it would be my recommendation that each election-related bylaw would be considered on its own, just because they're different subject matters, and we wouldn't necessarily want to overly complicate elections generally by talking about everything at the same time. However, that being said, voting methods, which we've alluded to in the last couple of meetings, is something that's certainly on our radar already proactively as being identified as something that's of interest for council, particularly around a question around internet voting at a previous meeting. So that's certainly on the radar, and we can certainly put that on our work plan. And speaking of work plan, council did establish a regulatory bylaw review work plan. And so just to take it, I guess, at a bird's eye view, when considering, when council is considering which bylaws you want to take a look at, we are certainly happy to bring back that work plan for the information and to obtain direction from council with respect to what your priorities are over the next council term, so that you can let us know and direct what the flow of those bylaws will be. And so if election signs is to have a review again and revisited and reestablished, if I could put it that way, then we can certainly have that discussion around the work plan itself and cue it in when council deems that appropriate.
Perfect, thank you. Councillor McIntosh?
Thank you, Worship. Through to Deputy Mayor Taylor, would you consider a complete ban as part of your discussion when we come to it?
Deputy Mayor Taylor.
I have read what's happened south of us, and to me, I think that's a bit radical. And from my position, and this is not a comment for the people that are sitting at this table, but we do have an unfair advantage over others who are going to run, and I just want to be very cognizant of that. So one of the best ways to get your name out there is through signs, in my view, and I would hate to, 4 years from now, put myself in an advantage, even greater advantage, I think, than we already have versus some new folks. So no, that's not what I was thinking. But again, I'm interested in the discussion, and if that's where it goes, then I think that's good. We just need to have the conversation.
Councillor McIntosh.
Yes, again, through you. I don't think the public looks at signs anymore and casts their vote. They're smarter than that, I think. I look at two candidates that had multiple signs all over the place, and neither one was elected. So I don't think that helps the way you may think it does. I think in past it may have, but the future is internet and newspapers and things like that. I just don't think signs have the impact they used to. But again, we can debate that when the time comes.
I think we'll have a good talk on December 12th. Councillor Andrews, you got something to add?
I do, and thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Taylor, for bringing this forth. I know that the clerk has been very kind to identify the work plan, but while it's fresh on our minds, it may be an opportunity for us to at least dive into it, as you mentioned, Your Worship, looking at it on December the 12th. The other comment I have, and please correct me if I'm wrong on this, Madam Clerk, regarding provincial and federal elections. Does this particular bylaw also apply?
Madam Clerk.
Through you, Your Worship, yes, it does apply to provincial and federal elections as well.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Taylor, you had an additional notice of motion?
I do. Thank you, Your Worship. So again, I'll just give a little preamble, and then if you'd like me to read it, I certainly can. So I brought this forward in the past, and I'm bringing it back tonight because I knocked on doors just like everybody else. And I hope, so last time I felt like I was kind of maybe a minority sitting up here. I think we all heard that unnecessary noise in our town was an issue and that people were upset about it. What my ask is that we go ahead and we, I like the work plan analogy. I think this needs to get moved up. I think it needs to be modernized. It was written in 1996. It speaks to horns and hooting, which, those are terms that we just don't use in today's world. And the issues is that modified mufflers, which are illegal, they're not necessarily caught in our piece. Now, the OPP are supporting the Highway Traffic Act. They issued 30 some odd tickets on a recent blitz for modified mufflers. So they are doing it, and it is illegal. I just think that we need to have it in our bylaws as well and support the people in our community who we heard that noise was an issue. And so when we get there next week or 2 weeks, whatever it is, I'll be presenting an idea for us to debate. And again, I don't like putting forward a bylaw that just says, this is what I want. Like, I'd like us to all talk about what it should be. And my overarching is I'm bringing forward what I heard was a problem. And I believe it's an important problem. And I'm hoping that the seven of us can agree on, okay, well, here's the initiatives underneath what we've identified as a problem. And then we can move this up on our work plan with the clerk's department and get their expertise and go from there. You're going to make me read this, aren't you?
I sure am. Please, Deputy Mayor. You wrote all those lovely words. Read them out loud for us now.
Right. So I got a new computer and I'm getting used to it. It's not been very cooperative with me this meeting. Okay, so whereas the town's noise bylaw was passed in 1996, and since that time the town has evolved due to technology of present times, and whereas the town's noise bylaw needs to be updated to include issues currently incurred within the town, and whereas the town's population has grown, the existence of loud noises that disturbs others has increased, and whereas any behavior created by individuals such as yelling, screaming, shouting, and or swearing is likely to disturb others within reasonable enjoyment of someone else within a public space. Whereas technology improvements of music playing devices has greatly improved, creating louder music which may disturb others. And whereas the technology improvements of sports cars has created the ability to modify car engines, specifically mufflers, which can create vehicles that purposely backfire or have overly loud muffler systems. Now therefore be it resolved that council directs staff to bring forward a bylaw to amend the town's noise bylaw to include a separate and distinct clause to create an offense for noise created by a motor vehicle to be enforced by the OPP.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Taylor. We will bring that one forward again on December 12th as well.
Thank you.
Was there any additional notice of motion at meeting? Nope, seeing none, we'll move on to new business. Was there any items of new business? Seeing none. All right, question period. Is there anybody in the public wishing to ask a question? Mr. Whitcomb. It's so nice to see you back in person at one of these meetings. Once you have a seat, just please make sure you turn on your mic.
Thank you, Mark Whitcomb, 34 Blind Line, Orangeville. Thank you for your comments on Bill 23. I'm deeply disturbed that it's too late, but that's the problem of what happened down in Queen's Park. Some comments about this council meeting, and you saw me sitting at the back. And normally I hear better at the back because I get sound coming around to my hearing aids instead of directionally, I get them more broadly. But I don't hear any sound from up here. And the sound back where I was sitting was very muddy. And I'm wondering if that can be improved, because otherwise people sitting there don't hear very well. And that's too bad. The other thing that I would comment on, and it's a little technical thing, but those little circles are unreadable. Now I know I've got old ears and old eyes, but still they're not that bad. And so they're just some little twin things that can be improved to make the presence of members of the public here more effective.
I appreciate your comments, Mr. Whitcomb, because this is our first official real meeting in a hybrid setting. So having the ability to get some feedback from you is crucial to how we can move forward and make it a more enjoyable experience for all of the people who are going to be sitting in the gallery.
My last comment is that I really hope with this council, and I saw evidence of it tonight, that you're listening to each other, that you are supporting each other where it's appropriate, that you raise good questions, and that it's done with a true sense of leadership of moving this town forward rather than following certain factions. So I'm really hopeful, really positively hopeful for how this council is going to work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Whitcomb. I appreciate your comments. And Jerry, if you can take those kind of technical comments back and maybe we can look into them. Thank you. Was there, oh, yeah, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Your Worship, I'm very sorry. I was so flabbergasted after you made me read my notice of motion that new business whipped by me and I didn't get a chance. Could I do so?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. I just want to remind everyone and council as well that this Friday is a very big day in the town of Orangeville, 7 o'clock at KC Gardens. The lights go on. Practice counting backwards from 10. Some of you here might have difficulty with that, but I think we're going to be good, but it's going to be an excellent night. And if you're watching in the public, please go to Christmas in the Park at KC Gardens. Don't park down there. If you can, walk or park up on Broadway. You can't park at the senior center and the street won't support you, but.
You turn your mic there, Councillor Sherwood?
Oh, at the Edelbrock Center. You can
Sorry, yeah, the Edelbrock Center, they can park there.
Which is on Broadway. Kind of, sort of. Either way, my point is, please go to Christmas in the Park. This Friday.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Taylor. Was there any other members looking to ask a question? Was there any online in a hybrid setting? No? Okay. So we will move on to item 19, which is bylaws. The recommendation that the bylaws listed below be read 3 times and finally passed. 19.1 is a bylaw to authorize the entering into and execution of a visitor services agreement with Theatre Orangeville. 19.2 is the bylaw to authorize the entering into and execution of an Opera House Management and Cultural Initiative Agreement with Theatre Orangeville. 19.3 is a bylaw to authorize a consent agreement with Eric Merle Calder at 5 Henry Street. And 19.4 is a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Orangeville at its regular meeting held tonight, November 28th, 2022. Can I have a motion, please? Deputy Mayor Taylor and Councillor Andrews, any comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor? And any opposed? Wonderful. Next is a motion to adjourn, please. Councillor McIntosh and Councillor Stevens, all in favor? Unanimous. Thank you so much. We will see everybody next week, December 5th, for the tabling of our budget. Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.